If you are expecting me to do some kind of Christian Bale Batman voice for these reviews, then you are out of your mind because I love talking and I don't want to kill my throat trying to do those. Nevertheless, this is Batman Begins, the first film in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, released in 2005. 11 years ago, wow. And just next week, we'll be getting a brand new Batman with Ben Affleck. But anyway, on to this review. Batman Begins is pretty much the beginning of Batman. This movie chronicles the origin story of Bruce Wayne, like through his rough childhood, his years in training and isolation, and eventually to his rise as Batman. And that's all the first half of the movie. Then the second half comes in, which pretty much focuses on a group of villains trying to spread a fear toxin around Gotham in order to kind of liberate it. It's kind of a bizarre second plot, but it works in the end, and it's really well done, I have to say. Now, when I first saw Batman Begins in the theater, I thought it was okay. There were some problems I had. I wasn't really used to the new form of Batman, but I didn't hate it. However, as the years went by, I rewatched the movie a couple times. Once in prep for the original review I did back in 2012. You can go look for that on my old channel. And then again in prep for this brand new review. The movie keeps getting better the more I watch it. And one of the things that made me think it was okay when it first came out was the origin of Batman. I've said this with Spider-Man, I've said this with Superman, and the same thing applies for Batman. The origins of these three characters are so iconic that it's pointless to make a movie based off the origin stories. Like, how many times are we going to see this? But to be fair to Batman Begins, we never really had an origin movie about Batman. Because if you really look at the first series, directed by Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher, there was no origin story at all. The series starts out with Bruce Wayne as Batman. So to see him go through all the trials and errors to become Batman and how Bruce Wayne as a person changes from the death of his parents to finally realizing what he has to do to protect Gotham is really fascinating. And Christian Bale, I think, does a really good job at making a really complex Bruce Wayne. He might be the most interesting live-action Bruce Wayne thus far. We'll see what Ben Affleck does. But Christian Bale, I think, nails it. As Batman, on the other hand, he's passable. The suit does look a little strange, but there are parts where he is threatening. And as for the voice here, it actually sounds pretty natural. It's growly, but it doesn't come across as comedic, like the other two movies, which we'll get to later. But Christian Bale, I think, does a really good job. You also have a lot of other great cast members in this movie. You have Gary Oldman as, at this point, Sergeant Gordon. He'll work his way up to commissioner soon, but Gary Oldman is always a fantastic actor in everything he's in. And as Gordon, I think he's perfect. He's perfect yet natural. And to see him and Batman team up to solve this giant plot that the cops in Gotham are kind of incapable of doing is really fascinating. Out of all the cops in New York City, they look at this Batman as a vigilante, someone who can't be trusted. But Gordon recognizes the talents in Batman and uses him as a powerful ally. And again, Gary Oldman nails it. Michael Caine is really great as Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce Wayne's butler. And in the other movies, Alfred was very much the butler. I love how in this one he's more of the father figure. And again, like Gary Oldman, Michael Caine is great in everything he's in. Even in something as terrible as Jaws the Revenge, he still shows some charisma, and he's the best part of that movie. But here, he's kind of the heart of the film and the entire franchise. He's kind of the voice of reason behind Bruce Wayne. He reminds him that he's human and that he has limits. As for Katie Holmes, I know a lot of people don't seem to like her in this movie. I didn't think she was really bad. I thought she was good as Bruce Wayne's childhood friend Rachel. If I had a problem with Katie Holmes in this movie, it's that she looks 16 years old. Like, every time I look at Katie Holmes in this movie, I'm like, shouldn't you be Gordon's daughter or something? Shouldn't you be gearing up to be Batgirl at some point? I just have a hard time seeing Katie Holmes working in law. And again, she wasn't bad. It's just she looks super young. Cillian Murphy and Liam Neeson are in this movie as the film's villains, Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul. Both of them do a really good job, and they're both villains we've never seen in the films before. Scarecrow is really threatening, and the fear-inducing gas can scare you at times. Like, I remember playing Arkham Knight, and the most frustrating parts were with Scarecrow just because I was losing my mind. And that's pretty much how Scarecrow is in this film. And Liam Neeson is very good as Ra's al Ghul. Today, I kind of find Liam Neeson to be a cliche because of all those action movies he does. But he is very intelligent, he's calm, collective, and he makes for a good mentor slash enemy to Batman. The movie also has a really great look. The cinematography is gorgeous. The production design is really probably the most creative out of the three movies because it sort of blends in that comic book look, or hell, even the look of the original Tim Burton movie, and blends it well with the city of Chicago, where the series was mainly filmed. And it's probably the most comic book looking of the Dark Knight trilogy, and I really like it. I wish they'd carried it over in the other two movies, but here it's really effective. And I also love how everything from the Batman comics and other pieces of Batman lore are taken and really kind of melded into a more realistic world. Like, Nolan really wanted to make this series as realistic and down-to-earth as possible so we could believe in Batman, and he successfully did it, but he never ever broke away from the spirit of Batman. This is really a fantastic movie, but it's not perfect, sadly. I remember when this movie came out, when I thought it was okay and people were just singing the praises. And admittedly, while the movie does get better, I have some problems. I mentioned Katie Holmes looking super young, but another problem I have with the movie is the dialogue. The dialogue seems to be very expository and states the obvious, and I just feel like Nolan, he's a great director and a great storyteller, but in terms of dialogue, I don't think that's his strong suit. Like, I'm a big believer of the whole show, don't tell, where it's better to show something and make us as the audience believe it, and we can interpret it on our own, rather than having characters tell us everything that's going on. And getting back to the villains, while I think both of the villains are good, Scarecrow does exit the film in a very anticlimactic way. Once he, fully becomes the Scarecrow villain, he gets tasered in the face and just disappears. And in terms of Ra's al Ghul, I never quite understood the reasoning behind having a decoy for Ra's al Ghul, because when we start off the movie, Bruce Wayne and us as the audience see Liam Neeson as this guy named Ducard, and Ra's al Ghul, in name, is played by Ken Watanabe. He's killed, and then later on, there's another decoy that goes by the name of Ra's al Ghul, and then the decoy just goes away immediately after, and then it's revealed to us that Liam Neeson is Ra's al Ghul. So I just didn't quite understand why we needed a decoy. Now, here are two things that I really am not a fan of. I don't care how great this movie is, I'm not a fan of it. The Batmobile in this movie is this giant black tank. While cool on its own, is not what I imagine the Batmobile to be. When I think of the Batmobile, I imagine something that's very fast, stealthy, and slick. This is just too bulky, too tough, and there's nothing about it that speaks stealth. It's just this giant, rumbling tank that destroys everything in its path. And it just seems like, for Batman wanting to be as stealthy as possible, he sure picked a really distracting vehicle. And it just doesn't work for me. And the worst part about this movie, I think, are the action scenes. And when I say action scenes, I mean more the hand-to-hand fight sequences. These hand-to-hand fight sequences are probably the worst filmed and worst edited I've ever seen. It's filmed up close, and it's so heavily edited that you can't tell what's going on at all. Like, you'll see a punch there, a batarang there, something, guy getting knocked off an edge there, but it's all filmed so close that you can't make out anything that's going on. And if you go back to some of my earlier reviews, I can't specifically pick out which ones, but usually when I talk about bad action sequences and them being shot poorly or heavily edited, I usually use Batman Begins as a prime example. And if you watch the movie, you can definitely tell why I have a problem with these action scenes. It does hurt the movie, but it's not enough for me to say it's bad at all, because Batman Begins is a really great origin story. The first half is more interesting than the second half, but they're both really well done. The cast pulls it off tremendously. The non-fist fight action scenes are really well done. It has a great look. It runs a little too long, but this is the shortest out of the trilogy, and I actually don't feel the length when watching this. Not a perfect movie, but one that's definitely worth seeing in your lifetime if you haven't. And maybe even if you're not into superhero movies, I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, this is one that could appeal to you because it's more down to earth and realistic. And that's my review for Batman Begins. Now, before I go, I want to talk about an Indiegogo campaign that's going on. My good friend Catherine Diaz, who was a co-host on my podcast Rooftop Chats, is cast as the lead in a short fan film based off the short-lived Joss Whedon TV show Firefly called A Faithful Companion. And they have an Indiegogo campaign set up where they're seeking donations and really need help getting the movie funded. So if you're a fan of Firefly or fan films in general, I definitely suggest you go check out the campaign and donate as much as you can and share it with your friends. There are many people out there that love Firefly, and I'm definitely one of them. So if you want to see this get made, they can't do it without your help, so go over there and fund them. There will be a link in the description leading you to the campaign, so you can go check it out, share it with your friends, spread the word. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on Batman Begins if you've seen it. Like, comment, subscribe, share me with your friends. Go check out my official website, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, Periscope, and Riff.tv. This is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.